All right. So hello, and welcome to the virtual author chats. I'm so incredibly happy Stephen Policoff is with us today. Um, I'm going to tell you the fun story about how we know each other, but first I'm going to read his actual bio before I forget that. Stephen Policoff's first novel, Beautiful Somewhere Else, won the Jones Award and was published by Carroll and Graf in 2004. His second novel, Come Away, won the Zank Award. Is it Zank or Zonk? Zank?
I think it's Zank. I don't really know
Okay.
how to pronounce it.
Well, it's Dzanc if anyone cares. And it was published by Zank Books in 2014. It's actually a big award, just so you know. His essay, Music Today, about his disabled older daughter's joyous experience in music therapy, won the Fish Short Memoir Award and was published in Fish Anthology 2012. It has subsequently appeared in music therapy journals and websites around the world, which is so cool. His essays and fiction have appeared in The Rumpus, Volume 1, Brooklyn, Sunday Stories, Provincetown Arts, Oyster River Pages, and many other publications. He has taught writing at Yale and Wesleyan and is currently clinical professor of writing in global liberal studies at NYU. He can be reached at stephenpolicoff.net or through Global Liberal Studies at NYU. By the way, feel free to put in your connection things in the chat there, Stephen, if you want people to be able to see the connections and ways to get in touch with you. And this is the book of his, Dangerous Blues, that we're going to be talking about today. And we'll also be talking about The Mortality Shot, which is my book, and both of them deal with mortality and grief. And hey, and yet somehow have a lot of humor in them because we're us. Anyway,
And they both would make really great Christmas presents for your melancholy friends.
really great Christmas present, or just maybe your two chipper friends that you're just
Yeah,
kind of sick of. Maybe give
right.
to them too, because they get annoying. So give them these. All right, okay. So um so yeah, so I know Stephen because I was a little theater geek in 2000, oh no, 2000, God, in 1980. What am I talking about? And I was part of this horrendously named but wonderful program called Center for Creative Youth, which everybody who went there thought the name was horrible, but we all loved it and we had a great time. And we were all the little theater and art and writing geeks from around Connecticut. And Stephen was the creative writing teacher. And oh, I'm so excited to see all these alums. It's so cool. And so I met him there, even though I was a theater geek, because I had some writer friends. And then I went back like and taught there, and some people were there with me, did that as well. And one year we even taught together. I think I was one of your assistants in the
Yeah.
creative writing program when Jeff was there, I think. And it was incredible, like the people there and the vibe, as anyone who's here remembers. It was quite the vibe, and it was so much fun. And it was just so great to reconnect. And one of the things, social media has a lot that's bad, but one of the best parts is reconnecting with people that you've lost touch with. And Stephen is one of them. And of course, his writing is amazing, not surprising. He was an amazing writing teacher. He inspired so many writers, so many, and just with delightful exercise. Anyway, just great. So you're going to see all that. So I don't have to keep yammering about how great he is. Though he might not mind.
You can. It's
I
okay.
can. I can keep going. I can keep going. And this book is also, the subhead is kind of a ghost story. It's a novel. And you will see the connections and why we're talking. But do you want to talk, Stephen, just to begin with, about what brought you to this novel and the ghost story part of it?
Sure. Well, as some of you know, because I know some of you, my wife died uh, young, about 12 years ago, and it was a huge deal, obviously. And I had not intended. I never thought I would write a novel about it, and in fact, it was far from my thoughts. But I did start thinking about what it would be like to feel literally haunted rather than metaphorically haunted by the past. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I could do that. And I had already created the narrator of our first two novels is his name is Paul Brickner, and I thought he is particularly porous, let us say, to weird and unexplainable stuff. In the first novel, he thinks that he's perhaps encountered aliens. In the second novel, he is convinced that that a changeling child is trying to take his daughter away from him. And I thought, well, I could use him again. I had thought I was sick of him and done with him, but he seemed like he would be the person to tell this story. He's also sort of a slightly untrustworthy narrator, and I like that. That's a form that I love, sort of, and I slip into it fairly easily. And I know how he talks. He talks like me. He's not me, but he does talk like me.
He
and
does. It's true.
yeah, he does. I mean, I tried to make him not me by virtue of background and how I imagine him physically and so forth. And obviously, I have not experienced any of or not very many of the weird things that actually happen in this book. I always say this is the most autobiographical book I ever wrote, except that very few of the events actually happened to me. But the feeling of it certainly is. And I thought, okay, he starts to see the ghost of Nadja, his late wife. And then what happens? And I thought, well, I don't really, what do I know about ghosts? I myself have never seen a ghost. I'm interested in the idea of ghosts. And as I say in the book, to me, if you're thinking about all the weird things, that people believe in, ghosts are, they're plausible. The idea that the soul in some way, trapped between planes of existence might hang around and bother you. That's an interesting idea to me. So I started doing some research, and even though I teach at NYU and have taught at NYU for 1,000 years, I'm not a particularly good researcher. It's not one of my skills. But I started sort of just cruising around looking for ghost lore, and of course you can find anything on the internet. And I did read a book also on sort of British ghost lore, because the British have a lot of ghosts things going on. And I found just so many weird things. And then I thought, okay, pretty much anything that I make up about this subject is already out there, kind of. And that's sort of what I did. So I started thinking about how to make the ghost part of a larger idea of sort of a world where we're not completely certain what's real and what's not real, a subject that I've always been interested in. So that's kind of how it got started. And I did not know that it was going to be a novel, really. I thought, well, I'll fiddle around with this idea and see where it goes. And then I started thinking about his relationship to his daughter, who is, let's be honest, a version of my daughter. Although, in fact, she says she doesn't have to read the book because she's in it. It's not entirely true, but it's sort of true. Fortunately, she was 11 when I wrote the book, or when I started the book, and is now 23. So there's a big difference in terms of who she actually is now. But I wanted to make that relationship the key to the book in a lot of ways. And I thought it would be useful to introduce a young person and have her less jaundiced view on this sort of unknown and weird stuff that's happening. So.
Yeah, and honestly, like, as somebody who was an 11-year-old girl, I got to say, you really nailed it. You really nailed the tween experience. And I knew, I was like, this has to be based on his daughter, because it was so realistic. It's so beautifully unsentimental and hilarious, and very charming too. I mean, it's not off. I mean, it's not like, oh, horrible things, but it's just the whole thing. And the thing I love about the novel too, that we've talked about, I just want to say quickly before, I'm hoping you're going to read some of it so people can know, but I love that you really capture the way my experience with grief and loss, the way that it just makes you feel, like, from the narrator's point of view, Paul, that, like, just so untethered, and so like everything is weird and nothing makes sense, and you're, even if you're already untethered, then you're like super untethered, you know, and it's just amazing. And I just love how you captured it again without the, you know, without underlining it. I mean, you just, it occurs within the context. So I'm going to stop talking and actually ask you, if are you going to read part of that chapter, the chapter 16, was it?
Yeah, I'm going to read. I mean, I guess I'll read. It's pretty short. I'm going to read. I guess I'll read a very slightly edited version of it.
Sure, do whatever.
This chapter takes place in the New York apartment where Paul and his daughter Spring are subletting from his grad school friend Lucy. And one of the things about the apartment is that Lucy is a collector of Ganesha statues, and that gets mentioned here. The only and his late wife's name is Nadja, and I think everything else is relatively clear here. Okay. I blink twice, but my father-in-law is still there. He's gulping down some of the madoc I was saving in case I ever had reason to celebrate again. He's holding Spring's hand and beams up at me, his John Lennon glasses glinting in the late afternoon light. I put down my bag of groceries, smile wanly. You didn't tell me you were coming, I point out. No, my boy, no, I did not. But our little Springlet has been furiously texting me. I could stay away no longer. He leans in to hug my daughter, who is curled up next to him on the brown couch. Spring appears to be the only living human to whom Dr. Mayer has a strong attachment. They routinely exchange texts, emails, photos. Yes, I still call him Dr. Mayer, even though I was married to his daughter for 12 years, even though we both lost her. He has always been Dr. Mayer to me, scholar of the uncanny, author of innumerable and often unreadable books, articles, monographs on esoteric subjects ranging from Tibetan Bardo lore to alien abduction. Prodded by Nadja, I occasionally forced myself to call him Eric. He didn't seem to notice, but somehow I've always reverted to the more formal mode. It better embodies my ambivalence toward a man who ditched his family to pursue inner truth. He disentangles himself from his elfin granddaughter, brandishes the wine bottle. Spring found this in a cabinet. Have some. Spring leaps up. Can I have a sip, Daddy? She deftly pours a small amount of wine, she knows this is all I will manage, into one of Lucy's dusty glasses. You could say hello first. How was school today? What's your homework? Dr. Mayer shuffles towards us. He stops to examine one of Lucy's Ganeshas, a tiny reclining bronze figure. What an extraordinary collection, he murmurs. God of new beginnings, very appropriate, I'm sure. I wish I were sure. He looks more stooped than the last time I saw him. It occurs to me that I have no idea how old he is, or how well he is, or how he has lived with the pain of losing his only child. He pats my shoulder, about as warm a gesture as he has in his repertoire. Good to see you, my boy. I've been planning to come down here for several months, but this book I'm working on, quite consuming. He tries to gaze into my eyes, but I look away. He does not bring out the best behavior in me. I flirt with the impulse to lie, tell him that his ex-wife Pearl is on her way, just to watch his forced cheerfulness fade. Although they've been divorced for 30 years, Nadja's parents continue to despise one another, cannot bear to be in the same room. This frozen childishness is by far the most enjoyable aspect of my connection to my late wife's family, if only because it puts my own vaguely adolescent approach to the world into perspective. How are you getting on here? Spring tells me she likes her school. Are you working? Are you engaging in the energy, the life force to be found in this great city? No, I say. I drink the wine. Spring gives me a dirty look because I have not passed the glass to her, but as I sometimes do. The intercom buzzes, a nasty insect-like noise that always makes me flinch. Irina is coming up. Spring grabs my glass, licks the last drop of wine. We have to write an essay about a happy childhood memory and a sad childhood memory for humanities. We're going to work on it together. Springy Spring, Irina bellows as she dances through the door. Her hair must have recently been recolored. It is even more vividly purple than before. The two girls immediately begin tickling each other, giggling, chasing through the hallway. Then, as if summoned by an unheard call, Irina stops short in front of me. Hello, sir, she says with strange politesse. My mother sends her regards. How are you? Just call me Paul. I'm okay, I guess. This is Spring's grandfather. She thrusts her hand at Dr. Mayer. who looks at it as if not quite sure what to do with it. How's your mom? I ask. Very well indeed, sir, she says. Why Irina sometimes speaks to me like a character from a Victorian novel is one of a host of mysteries about her family. But Spring tugs at Irina's sleeve and they vanish into the bedroom with their notebooks, laptops, cell phones. Dr. Mayer stares fondly at the spot Spring was recently occupying on the couch. Does she seem all right to you? He asks. Is she whole? Can she ever be whole? Can any of us ever be whole, having that cherished soul ripped from our lives? He sighs, sits on the white plastic kitchen chair. And you, Paul, how do you manage? How do you manage to get on with life, to take care of Spring, to endure? I don't especially like the turn our conversation is taking. I've always preferred to honor the unwritten rule of in-law interaction, never speak of anything important or allude to any emotion stronger than contentment. I stumble along, I say, what's my choice, really? I stride back into the living room, stare out the window as I do most days. I want to change the subject. I always want to change the subject when I'm with Dr. Mayer. But as I turn away from the kitchen, I notice a long, thin, blue shadow falling across the room. It's Nadja's shadow, and she's tapping insistently on Dr. Mayer's shoulder. And he sits up as if he can feel it, and his face is grayer and older than I've ever seen it. And then the shadow is gone, and I slump into a chair. I'm smiling. I'm not sure why, but I cannot get this stupid smile off my face. Sometimes, lately, I think I see her. I see Nadja, I say, and I cannot tell if I'm whispering this or not. Her shadow, her spirit, her ghost, I can't even describe it. It's evanescent, but still somehow solid, not like a creature from my imagination. Nadja, present, real, but it can't be. It can't be real, can it? Nadja's ghost? He nods, pours himself more wine, sips it thoughtfully. I suppose you're wondering if I believe in such phenomenon, if, as some assert, a soul in a spiritual fugue state could be trapped between different planes of existence. Perhaps. So many anecdotal reports. In Bora Bora, it is the blue apparition, the mournful imprint of one who cannot bear to be parted from a beloved other. In the Aran Islands, it is the black wind, a stream of cold air, black as smoke, pushing the living away from danger, howling like a banshee. He removes his glasses, vigorously wipes them with a small gray cloth. I think for a moment he might be crying, and I've never seen him cry, even at Nadja's funeral. There are other theories we must consider, though. My friend Oliver Sacks calls such occurrences bereavement hallucinations. Yes, and he tells us that they're similar to what surgeons call phantom pain, like the pain of a lost limb, a limb you can still feel throbbing even when it has long ago been severed. Ordinarily, I would make some sarcastic remark to interrupt the good doctor's woolly musings, but Spring suddenly bolts out of her room, sobbing. I can't write this essay. I can't. I was trying to write a happy memory, and I was remembering how we would all go down to the creek, and Mommy would put me in an inner tube, and we would float side by side across the rocks, and we would sing merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream, and it was so great. But now when I think of it, I want to scream, and it's not happy anymore. I don't have any happy memories because I miss her so much, and everything that was happy is sad now, and I hate remembering it. I hate it. Irina emerges from the room, her eyes cast down. Spring runs toward me. She grabs me so hard I think she will knock me over. I stroke her sweet head, and my shirt is soon soaked with her tears. Then the room gets dark, like a cloud has just passed over us. I see Nadja's shadow again, and her arm is draped around Spring, and her long blue fingers are touching Spring's face. I shudder. I whisper, look at the wall. Into Spring's ear. She looks. She sees what I see. I'm sure she sees it. Irina tugs at her arm. Guess what? My memories are pretty crappy, too. Running away with my mom, running away from my mom. Come on, Springy Spring. We'll make something up. Spring gives me a crooked smile. What was that? Irina and Dr. Mayer are both looking at me. I feel their eyes on me, as if they are waiting for me to reply. But I shrug, and Spring gives a loud, funny whoop, and then the two of them race back into her room.
I love that so much. It's so beautiful. And I just love how the way you do it is like, I was thinking last time, it's like reverse Hamlet or something. It's sort of like, you've got this ghost that others can see, it's not just, that's what I love you do. It's not just his hallucination, it's, they're also feeling and seeing her. And it feels like it's this very tangible kind of version of the way in which people share a memory of somebody, but like it's there, as a presence somehow. I don't know if that's what you were thinking or if that's just me interpreting it or.
No, I mean, I think that's right. I wanted, I wanted to keep it sort of ambiguous as to whether this is a real phenomena or not. I mean, that to me is sort of important. So the two people who think they might see her are also the people who have lost her. And I prefer not to come down on the on one side or the other as to whether he's simply imagining stuff in his grief or whether there's something actually there, because I'm not sure, if there's really a difference between those things.
Yes, which actually reminds me, I told you I was gonna read this. This is just as you just gave me the perfect opening, which is later on in the book, one of the ends of one of the chapters, which is chapter 31, is and not for the first time in my life, I wonder about all the things we see and all the things we believe we see, and what, if anything, is the difference. Which I feel, as we talked about briefly before, I feel like that is so much to do with what the book is about.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in that. I mean, I'm interested in it. I'm not so much in my own life. I'm not particularly a believer in. I lack the belief gene, basically. But I'm interested in it. I've always been interested in magic and the supernatural, and the possibility of there being more in heaven and earth than is dreamt of in our philosophy, as
Yes.
Hamlet
Yes.
says. And I mean, to me, that's also, I mean, it's such rich stuff, basically, in terms of the way we live our lives, basically, which is hoping that there's something more to our lives than what's here, or maybe fearing that there is. So yeah, I would have to say, of all of the things, the threads through the three novels of mine, apart from the characters who are pretty much the same, that idea that maybe there's more and we are not sure what it is, and we're not sure whether we're seeing it or not seeing it, or hearing it or not hearing it. That, to me, that's really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's fascinating. And also, I don't know if you just, it's because you told me, I hope you don't mind I mentioned this, that as a kid, even starting, you collected little Buddhas and Ganeshas, but you never knew why, which I just kind of love.
Yeah, somebody once told me that it must mean that I was a Buddhist in another lifetime, but I'm not sure that I think that's true. But I bought my first statue of I still have a little ivory statue of Buddha when I was like 11 years old, and I don't even know why.
Right.
And then, yes, my friends and my parents and various people started giving them to me. I have huge numbers of them, not quite the same as the apartment in New York that they're subletting, but that was definitely part of it. Also, I wanted to make that part of it. Ganesha, the fact that he's the god of doors, basically. He opens and closes doors, and I thought, well, that fits so perfectly with what Paul is going through.
And he makes a lot of mischief as well.
He makes a lot of mischief too.
Yes, and as
And
a
he
writer.
theoretically wrote the Mahabharata too, but
Yes, exactly. Right. Yes. But but we'll just have to take that under advisement. Yes, but exactly. So, the mouse, the writing, the trunk, the thing, and I love Ganesha. And it's interesting because my stepfather Tom, he gave me a beautiful Ganesha picture and different things before he died. And in fact, when he died, this actually, I don't I think I have this story somewhere in one of the stage texts in here. Um, we were holding, my mother was holding his hand and my stepsister was holding his hand and I was holding his feet, and his Ganesha statue was behind us in the hospital. And when he died, this like literally like it's so hard to describe this, but it was like waves of love came and like almost shoved me over. I mean, it was just amazing. It was the most extraordinary feeling. And I've just found being near people when they die, or with knowing someone very close, things happen, just stuff happens, and there's no explanation. And then I had all these dreams of diamonds and surf and all this stuff. And it was so, and then I found out that was a lot of iconography from different, Buddhist and Hindu stuff. So I feel like there's just a lot of that that goes on when people die that you're close to.
Yeah. I mean, that was certainly one of the things that I was trying to tap into in the book. I mean, I wanted it not also, I wanted it to be funny as well as sad, because I think funny sad is the best combination. But certainly it was the sad stuff that first impelled me to start writing it.
Yeah, and
The character of Dr. Mayer is one of my favorites. He's totally made up, but I love him just because he knows everything, but he's also a bit of a windbag, and that's kind of I love that idea.
yeah, yeah, it's great. And it's interesting too, because the book ends around, Thanksgiving and then Christmas time too. So that's yet another reason it's a good Christmas present, just back to your, because it's got the whole family, like the whole way the family comes together, this very dysfunctional, confused situation all kind of comes together in very unexpected ways, and it's quite beautiful. And again, I just want to say unsentimental, and that's what I love about it. It like you manage to thread that needle, and that's hard. you know so
Yeah. No, we should talk about your book now.
we can do, yeah.
Because because you do a lot about grief and different ways of looking at grief. And when I was looking at the book earlier today, actually, I remembered that essay that you wrote about COVID, which is kind of weirdly structured and interestingly structured. And I thought maybe you would talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, this is the book. It's called The Mortality Shot. It's a hybrid collection. Yay. It's in hard and softcover. It's a hybrid collection. It's put out by a wonderful little publisher called Liquid Cat Publishing. And it's got short stories, more fictionalized stories, and essays, very interestingly, hopefully structured essays. And I'll get to that in a second, and a stage text. And the reason I called it The Mortality Shot and the way it came together is a bit of a long story, but essentially I saw a call out from another publisher asking for a hybrid collection that came together somehow. And then I just looked at all my stuff I'd written that had been published or almost published. In some cases, most of the stuff had been published before. And it was like, oh, I seem to write about mortality a lot, and then the mortality shot hit me. And then this essay, it's called Epistemology 99 Days. And I'm just going to show you all a little bit if you can see the structure. It's in number form. And I basically woke up one night 99 days into having COVID and long haul COVID. I got COVID early in March 2020 and very early in New York in the way that a lot of us did. And it was terrifying, to be honest. And a whole bunch of stuff happened after this. I ended up in the hospital, all kinds of things that haven't even happened by when I wrote this. But this was about that. And I essentially got up in the middle of the night and wrote, and I think I even make reference to how I'm writing it. So I'm just going to read it. So it's 99 days, and it's a list of 99 things. 1, my great grandmother died of the Spanish flu in 1918 in Ansonia, Connecticut. 2, I feel connected to her now in a visceral way in our apartment on West 204th Street in Manhattan. Indeed, felt her presence before I got sick. I saw it coming in late January, felt it in my bones. No, more precisely, my lungs, a crushing heaviness in my chest, making it hard to breathe, a physical presentiment. Begged New York City to shut down weeks before it did. Unsurprisingly, no one listened. 3, language is only approximate. The body is where this is happening. Its language stores the knowledge. 4, no, that's a lie. 5, I can only access bodily sensations via neurological channels, organizing it within milliseconds as my so-called experience. 6, Buddhists knew this perhaps? This is why life on Earth as we experience it is called Maya, an illusion, a dream, a fiction. 7, is the witness real, the vagus nerve? 8, maybe this is all a hypothalamus after party. 9, the energy surges like jolts of electricity shooting through my body from soul to crown out of the blue, usually when sitting or lying down. 10, The pins and needles in my legs, the newest symptom. Neuropathy is what the neurologist diagnosed, who struck the back of my ankles with his little hammer only to see neither of my feet move. Peripheral neuropathy, which on the chart reads pleural neuropathy, obsessed with neurology. 11. Am I damaged for good? Damaged goods? Anything good about damage? 12. Will I heal fully or partially? 13. The chorus of I don't know from both doctors and my own research. 14. The endless stream of scary articles based on non-peer-reviewed research, reading them too late at night on my phone. 15. Not good. 16. The fears of clots and heart attack and stroke, and before that of hypoxia in my lungs. 17. I am lucky though, only minor neuropathy in my feet mostly, a sense of smell that comes and goes, steamroller fatigue. 18. This is considered lucky. 19. No one knows anything. 20. My body, though, it does know. My cells won the battle, but is virus RNA masquerading as antibodies, Trojan cells waiting to attack? That is a theory in one of the frightening articles. 21. I am writing this at dawn. The sky had been hot pink at the building horizon. Now the whole sky is bright pale, waiting for the blue to color itself in. 22. I could not sleep and decided to get up to write this. 23. Did I mention the burning of the esophagus, that which mimics a sensation of heart attack, radiating out like a mushroom cloud in the chest, making you sit upright to ask, is it gastritis? My lungs pleural in embers, my heart on fire? Checking the pulse oximeter for heart and oxygen readings, playing doctor at 3 a.m. 24. The sleepless nights, afraid that if I fall asleep, I might not wake up. What if I'm wrong? 25. The nights of having to access somehow that deep, still place, vagus nerve, God, mind, witness, to ask it to ER or not to ER. 26. I do not go to the ER. Imagine the scene. Imagine the looks of the doc seeing a middle-aged woman and thinking, panic attack, oh, she has nerves. Imagine my lack of desire to face withering contempt or condescension alone, since no one can join me, no male gaze in the form of my husband to mitigate this. Also, can't see making the paramedics walk up and down a top floor walk-up. My codependent fear outweighing even the fear of dying. Imagine. 27. Walking into the door jam at 2 a.m. in the dark after reading one of the scary articles on my bright phone, adding a minor concussion into the mix. 28. Surprise. 29. This is day what now? Now at time of writing, day 99. 30. Some people count the weeks. 31. We are a cabal, the long tails, the long haulers. They don't know what to do with us. If doctors didn't get it too, I doubt anyone would believe us, but they do, male doctors. So now we are real. We are believed. 32. Is it all lodged in my brain now? 33. The impossibility of calm when needed most. 34. Let it be just as it is. 35. The mantra. 36. The breathing. 37. The moment of calm in which I know I will be okay, like touching the bottom of the ocean floor beneath all the ruckus on the surface. 38. The inexplicable intuition that I will live to 98 and die of old age, happy as a clam. 39. Seriously, that was the wording of the intuition, happy as a clam. Let us hope clams are indeed happy. 40. And looking out at the ocean. 41. Perhaps Westray, the view from Kerbist, where the North Sea and Atlantic Ocean meet, more on the Atlantic side, at the beginning or end, depending where you start, of the Western Walk. 42. May's Sand. The seals that follow me as I walk along the shore, their heads popping up like U-boat periscopes, giving me the side eye. This white sand and clear blue-green sea where my soul resides stubbornly, waiting for me to return. 43. As of now, not allowed to do so. I'm an American, citizen of the pariah state, a death cult. 44. For real, it's like Jim Jones is president and we're being forced by his minions to drink the Kool-Aid. 45. A siren, a mournful siren, a reminder you are the lucky one. You are alive. And the fear, will that be me next? 46. My best friend had to remind me when I was trying to muscle through work obligations around day 20 or so that were crushing me. You have what could be a fatal disease. 47. I thought she was laying it on a bit thick. 48. She was right. 49, friends who are not sick posting scary articles over and over. I hate them. The ones who are on the sidelines and have the luxury to mull it over like it's a science experiment or a fucking game of odds. I know that isn't fair, but it's how it feels. 50, the fear is impossible to describe, such a tiny word for such a tsunami of sensation. 51, it's not all in my head any more than all your experiences or mine. 52, PTSD informs this, mine, yours, the nation's, the world's. We're being traumatized en masse. 53, the people who believe our death cult leader even more so. They are the Kool-Aid distributors. When they wake up, if they do, they will most surely collapse. 54, the rest of us, what can be said? We cling to the idea that an election will change this. I do. Is this naive? 55, nothing is normal. And now we are banned from Europe, the United States of COVIDiots who can't wear masks to save one another because freedom. 56, finally, our eternal adolescence is ending with consequences. Will we learn? How many more people have to die? 57, to have this is to have the body politic woven into one's own cells. 58, the political is personal, to reverse the old feminist saw. 59, I knew it was anyway, but now my body is backing me up. 60, sometimes I blame myself for the fear of it, as if that brought it to me, a tortured reading of Artaud's notion of who did and did not succumb to the plague. He said those who were not afraid were spared. Welp, we now know that formulation, as seductive as it appears, is flawed. 61, did my husband and I get it from the guy who installed our new Wi-Fi the week before the shutdown? 62, maybe. He didn't know either. We did not wear masks or gloves. I wiped everything down after he left. It was all about surfaces. At that time, we were told masks did not matter. Now we know they do. 63, Vietnam knew. They have 0 deaths. Life, as it turns out, is not cheap in Southeast Asia, as General Westmoreland claimed in 1974. No, it's cheap here, in the land of the big PX, where there appears to be a fire sale on the vulnerable. There still is. That's my add-on. 64, this is so much less clever than I had hoped. Instead, all you're getting is the raw footage. 65, I'm writing this naked, literally, sitting on my meditation chair in front of a gated window that opens out to a fire escape, the street 5 stories below, quiet at dawn. 66, my cat Ugo's butt and tail and hind legs are visible. He follows me around the apartment at night when I pace, then half hides behind the study divider, visible and not. 67, when I sleep, he curls up at my feet, and sometimes the nights I've been most afraid, he sleeps next to my head, his purring so loud in my ear, emanating from his chest, the pulsing of his heart and lungs, a reminder of a calmer pulse. 68, I am so tired now. 69, but if I try to sleep, I will turn and turn like a rotisserie chicken trying to get comfortable. 70, I will obsess over the prickly feelings that come and go in my legs and bottom of my feet. 71, sometimes I stare at my veins. Are they larger today, more pronounced? 72, it's scary to even say I'm getting better. 73, what if it hears me and comes back? 74, this shit makes you superstitious. 75, on some days I've actually said, get behind me, Satan. 76, and I am not religious. 77, this shit makes you religious. Belief in a false god, any god will do. 78, but I do believe in something, but I hesitate to name it lest it diminish to human scale. 79, so the writing always feels false. If I believe naming diminishes, what the fuck am I doing? 80, Ugo's hind legs are up in the air now, his tail splayed forward. 81, when I was a child, I wrote numbers from 1 to as long as I kept writing. I don't know when I stopped, just numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, you get the idea. 82, I forgot to tell the diagnostician about the dolphins. 83, did I mention? My brain is now, in fact, being examined. 84, which is, of course, what every 4th grade teacher tells her unruly students needs to happen. 85, I thought when I was around 13 or 14 that I could learn to communicate with dolphins. I read John C. Lilly. I knew it was possible and thereby save the world because they are so much smarter than us. 86, this was a common theme. 87, always trying to save the motherfucking world. 88, as if it ever wanted to be saved, or even if it does, why on earth would it be me that could do that? 89, no, that logic never stops me. 90, before the dolphins, age 11 to 12, I was an evangelical Baptist who was going to save the world by saving your soul. I knocked on doors witnessing. I handed out God as love pencils. 91, Before that, I tried to figure out how to have a world without money. I lay awake at night, age 5 or 6, trying to sort this out, staring up at the ceiling, my Winnie the Pooh bedspread on top of me, the Winnie the Pooh lampshade to my left on the nightstand, all of my stuffed animals lined up on the right side against the wall, just so. I tried too to imagine what the French looked like in chains, something my first grade teacher had told us, no doubt. This was 1969 in rural Maine. 92, after the Dolphins, it was theater and politics. 93, and now it's my body and many other bodies, millions of us, the ravaged site of this body politic where battles raged. Can it be of service? 94, I will go to the post-COVID recovery center of Mount Sinai. What will be day 101? 95, can they help me? Can I help them? 96, can this body save the world? Our bodies, ourselves? 97, mine, yours? 98, the rising sun rinses the sky pale bright, and now I'll try to sleep again. Sometimes this works. 99, recounting days like sheep, March 23rd to June 30th, 2020. Ah, wow, I haven't read that in a while. Thanks, Stephen, for asking me.
I'm actually curious how you wrote it. I mean, the structure of it is really interesting. I'm always interested in how writers write what they write. So why the numbers? Why did it come out that way?
I honestly don't know. I think I realize it's so funny because I just realized now I actually mentioned that I wrote numbers down when I was a kid, which turns out to be a very autistic thing to do. For those of you who don't know, I was diagnosed. That's what I'm talking about. I was being diagnosed about autism, and I got diagnosed at age 57. And I used to write numbers as a kid, and I'm kind of obsessed with numbers and dates and stuff. So I don't know if that's what I was thinking, but it was just, it started coming out with numbers, and I knew it was day 99. And I thought, I still think like that. It's just something it's a way I organize the world. I don't know why, to be honest with you. It's kind of like you and the Ganeshas when you were kids, like, why numbers? I don't know. But like, they're just there and they somehow do something. I guess they're self-soothing somehow. Maybe it's like a structure. I guess the name for that these days is called a hermit crab essay, I guess, where you put something, it's like in something else. It looks like a list, but it's an essay. Yeah, so it somehow it just came out that way. And I know that sounds really mystifying and I don't mean it to be. It was just one of those things and it just seemed to make sense and I just kept going with it and things kept coming after the next number and that
Well,
was it.
writing is a little mystifying. Let's face it.
Exactly.
But I love the list. I think the list is really interesting, and it struck me again. I had looked at the book. I read the book in the last spring or summer when we were first talking about doing this,
Yeah.
and then I had dug it out and looked at it again. I thought, oh yeah, this is really weird and interesting. So.
Mm. And I found it interesting too, rereading it today when you had mentioned it about mentioning Maya and the Buddhist illusions and the fact you have a character named Maya in your book. And, I just thought that was interesting too about this whole issue of, because if you know anything, if anyone here, I'm sure most of you probably do know about the neurological truth that even our direct experience is not direct. It is actually put through a little neurological framework that we learn. We don't even have it when we're babies. We learn it. And it's one of the things that if y'all happen to be neurodiverse in some way, in my case, I'm autistic, it gets all wired a little bit differently, hence the many confusions that can ensue between you and another person. But, because things are just wired somewhat differently, right? And it's just really fascinating to me, like that whole experience. And that's why I read that part of your book back to you, because it's like, ultimately it is Maya. Ultimately it isn't, it's like we don't have we do and we don't have direct experience, right? And so it's just fascinating. And I think there's something about death and loss or fear of death in this case, and that kind of just really puts you up against all that somehow, doesn't it? Because there's this ultimate thing we don't know for sure, like what happens after. None of us really know. Nobody's been able to come back and tell yet. Or if they have, they're probably a cult leader, which is another thing you have in your book. And
Yes, I love cults. I'm
yeah,
a big fan of cults. Not in my actual life, but I'm really interested in
yeah,
people's delusional beliefs.
yeah.
Everyone else's beliefs are delusional, of course, whereas mine are
True.
perfectly
Yes, of course.
normal. But I love that. I love that idea.
Yeah, and I love that actually in that cult in his book, it's called The Dream of the Dreamer, and it's sort of like so this idea of this dream and that. Oh, and what's really interesting is that you have that that thing of the frozen state in a dream where you can't move that you mentioned in your book, and
That's the
actually
very, yeah,
I was
in the
I
very
was
beginning of the book. Yes.
yeah, and actually that happened to me, and I couldn't tell whether it was a dream thing or a real thing. And then I called my doctor. This is a few days after I wrote this, by the way, weirdly enough, or about a month after I wrote this. And I was like, what was that? And she's like, well, it could have been a TIA, which is like a minor league stroke. And at first I was like, nah, it couldn't have been that. But I couldn't move. I was literally paralyzed, but I was awake. And then I go to the ER and they found out I had a dissection in my carotid artery and it had caused a minor stroke. So had I not, so it's just weird because I couldn't tell because of those kind of dreams. I was like, is this real or is this a dream? But I went in and they were like, and it took me hours to get there, of course, because yeah, me. And they were just like, why on earth did you wait so long to come here? And I was like, I didn't know.
Sleep paralysis is
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, actually, I teach. I still teach a dream essay in all of my writing classes. In fact, I just finished turning them back. Boy, they weren't very good. But no. But one of my students wrote about her experiences of sleep paralysis and all that stuff. All that stuff. Dreams. That's part of my always a long-term interest of mine. Dreams, cults, what's real, what's not real. And the cult is called the Dream People, actually.
Right, that was it.
And I invented that cult for another book that I never actually finished. And then I thought, well, it works here. I'll move it over here. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I know because I mean, dreams again is another place where you're in that weird world where things are both real and not real, and yet they're very real. And then in this case, in my weird case, like whether that was a sleep paralysis or a real paralysis or whatever, it's what got me eventually to the hospital and saved my life because had they not seen that and dealt with it, I'm not here talking to you. So like it's kind of amazing. That whole thing. It kind of makes me a little weepy when I think about it. I actually brought this book to the people at Allen Pavilion up here, part of the Columbia. And oh God, I cried when I gave it to them. They were so nice. Anyway, it's amazing. Like people save your life. I mean, it's like, oh my God, you guys, there you were, totally traumatized in July 2020, saving my life because they had been through all the things. And this was my ER is the one where the director killed her. She took her own life because she just couldn't. She was so overwhelmed in April 2020, and it was so hard because they had like more. They had the makeshift morgues with the refrigerator things out back. It was just I mean, there were just sirens. If you weren't in New York, it was like sirens all the time, just constant. And we're only a mile from the hospital, so it was just constant, constant, constant sirens. It was terrifying. But they were there in July. They were there. I just have so much. I can't say enough about these people. Like there they were helping us still, getting sick all over again for the fifth time. What can you say?
So should we ask for questions?
We can do that. Yes. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, let me actually hold on before I ask for your questions. I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself if you'd like to, or you can either unmute yourself and ask a question, or if you want to raise your little virtual hand, you can, and I can call on you. Or if you don't want to speak, but you'd like to ask a question, you can put it in the chat, either whatever floats your boat.
Or we could simply stare at each other.
Or we could stare at each other in uncomfortable silence.
Well, I wanted to ask, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
You can go first.
Well, I just wanted to ask Julia, if you actually wrote it, there's the way you say you wrote it in the numbered essay, but did you really write it that way?
mean, did I write it all in one night?
Yeah.
Sitting on my chair
Right.
like that? Yes, I did.
Well, okay.
I mean, I edited it some afterwards.
Right,
It's
of
not,
course. Of course.
but no, I
Yeah.
did in fact write it that way. It was things, as I was saying to Stephen before we got on, I have found in my life, a friend of mine refers to me as a baker. It's like it's somehow things simmer for a long time and then they pop out, and things that I torture myself over tend to not be as good. Sometimes they are. I don't want to
Because
say.
it seems like the numbers are, I can imagine myself doing that. It's like, well, this is all the stuff I want to get down, and not really thinking of, oh, this is how I'm going to structure this essay, but just go, oh, well, it kind of works that way, and letting it be.
Yeah, I just put number. It was just like I just went one, and then something came out, and then two, and that was it. I mean, it was just like that. It was really, and I watched the dawn happen, and
yeah, it makes the segues really interesting because you don't have to do the thing of somehow thinking about where to paragraph, and you just, and sometimes there's a connection and sometimes you move on to something else. And so it was quite moving to hear you read it.
thanks. Thank you, Jane. I really appreciate that. Yeah. Stephen,
There's a
did you want to
question.
get to that question from Audrey? Yeah. Yeah, you can read it.
Well, I guess my answer was, what would you think that I would think about them? I'm
Well, read the question first in case anyone can't see it. Stephen, if you are fascinated by cults, what do you feel about the former president and his adherents?
Well,
guess. Sorry.
Yeah, well, yes. I try not to feel about them very much, although they are. I mean, it is absolutely a cult. It's not the kind of cult that I'm actually interested in. I'm more interested in kind of the weird spiritual stuff. There's a great, bizarre HBO documentary going on called the
Mother God.
Yeah, Mother God. That's it. Which is exactly the kind of stuff that I love, because if you hear those people talk, they're very serious about what they're saying, and it's fucking crazy stuff. And they say it with such complete belief. It's like, I wish that I believed anything as much as you believe that. So that stuff interests me. I'm not really so interested in more more dangerous cults. The cult of the president who shall not be named.
Yes. Oh, it's so funny. I don't say his name either. That's really interesting. I refuse to say his name. It's interesting, Audrey, you said that because you might have noticed I had the Jim Jones references in my essay as well. And somebody who wanted to publish it in another place than the place that published it wanted me to take that out because they thought it was too extreme. And I was like, yeah, no. Next. I'm gonna I was like, no.
That's another great cult. I mean, I definitely was when I was creating the Dream People. I mean, I've always been interested in cults, but I definitely read up on the Jim Jones cult and the cult. Now I can't remember what their name was, where they thought that flying saucers were going to come and bring them.
That guy. Yeah, that was in the 90s.
He and she, I mean, they were called he and she, and their followers like self-castrated and stuff, weird stuff like that.
It's very weird.
Really, really weird. I love that stuff.
Yeah. Michelle, I think you unmuted yourself and tried to ask a question before. Do you want to do that again? Try again?
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to ask what either of you are working on next.
Huh?
Are you guys working on any new books?
I am, but I'll ask Stephen first.
Sure. I mean, I'm always working on something. I just have kind of finished a memoir. About my older daughter. My older daughter, Anna, was diagnosed at 4 with this horrendous genetic disease and was told that she wouldn't live till 13. She lived till 20, died in 2015. And the memoir is about her mostly and about our family's attempt to live with that, basically. So I know, cheerful stuff, but it is also full of humor, because what else are you going to do when your beautiful 20-year-old daughter is dying? So I've been tinkering that for a long time. I think I'm done with it. I'm done with it in the sense that I think I can't do anything more with it right now, and I'm sort of ready to start showing it to people. And I'm also working on another novel. I don't know why exactly, since not very many people have bought Dangerous Blues, which, by the way, again, would make a really good present. And it's not the same characters, although I've just decided that Dr. Mayer is going to make an appearance in the novel that I'm working on now.
Great, that's cool. And the one I'm working on is a memoir, actually, too, interestingly enough, about being diagnosed autistic at age 57. That came about because of going to a long intensive yoga retreat. It's a long story. That's why I'm writing a memoir about it. But just how that awareness came about, and then how I've had to reframe my entire life as a consequence. It's actually a huge liberation. It's the opposite of sad. It's amazing. And just to suddenly feel comfortable in my own skin for the first time at age 60. And I've never felt that. And so I didn't even know I was missing it until I could feel it. And so there's a happy sad about that, right? Like, I'm delighted it's happened, and it's just deeply sad for the years of my life that I felt thinking I was inherently flawed, and that guiding so many of my incredibly bad decisions. So it's like, looking at all that, and again, with humor, because again, what are you going to do? And there is a lot of humor, and I found a lot of wonderful people along the way, a lot of other autistic people, a lot of people, women especially, getting diagnosed very late. And it took me, I was writing one memoir about the yoga and trauma, and then I got the diagnosis, and then I tried to shoehorn it in, as you do, which did not work. And then I had to start again. So this is my third or fourth, once more into the breach, as you would say, Stephen. It's like, now and I think I finally found how it wants to happen. And it's now includes also the whole timeline of autism in my lifetime and a little bit before, and how it was framed, and the traumatic things that happened to kids that were diagnosed when I was a kid. It was really horrific. And so looking at that whole thing in relation to stigma, and in relation to why people were afraid of their kids being autistic, and how that's affected the whole disability. That's why I was fascinated by your story, Stephen, with your child, because just now, because you dealt that the world of disability is an extraordinary world, and the most incredible people. And it just counters everything that we are taught, in our little cult of productivity and capitalism to believe in. And it counters it experientially. So that's what I'm working on. Thanks for asking.
Fun
Dan,
stuff all the way around.
Fun stuff. Dan, did you have a question?
Yes. Are you psychic too?
No, I can see that you don't have a little red microphone.
Oh, yeah,
with
yeah.
a slash in front of it.
I was wondering if writing was. You seem only mildly autistic to me, but I don't know you. But
we can talk.
Was it therapy that started you writing? What do you think? Your self therapy, was that writing?
Are you talking to me or Stephen?
No, you, Julia.
Oh, therapy? No, I started writing. My mother is here. She can attest to the fact I was writing like poems and magic marker from when I was, I don't know, was I 4 or something? So, I mean, I've been writing forever. I didn't think of myself as a writer because I grew up with a bunch of writers. And so I became a theater director instead. What made me start writing, actually, and stuff that I now think of as unmasked autistic text before I knew I was autistic, this whole thing started happening because I was directing, and I got sick of directing other people's plays, and I wanted some kind of text I could play with, and this stuff started popping out. Again, back to Jane's question, I was not controlling it. It was like stuff came out, and it was like, what the hell is that? And one of those texts is one of the texts written by that is in here, with the last one I've done, Respiration. They just come out in this kind of voices and things and stuff happen all at the same time. And that's how I started writing. And it just came, it was a necessity thing, because I really didn't want to be a writer. I didn't want to compete with all the writers in the room. I was like, oh, geez, no. So it's kind of like
you're writing for yourself? Are you writing for yourself or for an audience?
I certainly hope I'm not just writing for myself. That would be kind of sad. If that was true, I'd just write in a journal.
But it might be interesting enough to have an audience too. I mean, you
yeah,
can do both.
yeah, it does have an audience.
It's like a memoir, isn't it? It's sort of like a memoir.
Which is, sorry, I'm confused.
It's your writing is sort of, it's in the style of a memoir to me, at least what you've sampled today.
Oh yeah, that is, yeah, for sure. I mean, I've done a lot of different kinds of writing. Some of it's memoir, some of it's dreams, some of it's all kinds of different things. Some of it's stories, some of it's, I've done a lot of different things, and written in different styles. But yeah, no, I don't. I mean, yes, I write for myself in that I'm trying to let something come out, but at the same time, what I'm more interested in is, well, I hope that it's for other people. I mean, you'll have
It
to
is.
tell me.
It's definitely interesting. And I'd be interested in, if you write about your yoga retreat, that would be very interesting.
Oh yeah, well, I'll write. I'm going to give you. I'm going to put my my website in there. It's the unadaptedones.com. If you go there, you can see a lot of publications of mine and get a sense of what I do. And yeah, and I write, and there's also a blog where I wrote about finding out I was autistic and all of the, bits and pieces of all that. But yeah, but that is what I'm writing about now. And thanks. I mean, I'm glad you're interested. That's very encouraging.
And I think people in general, it's like you see the television shows on TV, this whole spectrum thing is fascinating. People were sort of unaware of it. I think that people who aren't on the spectrum, maybe some figured out they are on the spectrum, but it's been sort of a recent development, the public's interest and the popular culture's interest in the whole topic. It's pretty topical.
I agree. And it's weird because that's why it's the happy sad of finding out now. Because on the one hand, it's weird to find this out so late in my life. But on the other hand, it's an amazing time to find out because so many people are beginning to understand. And in terms of the mild versus not mild autism thing, just to clue you in, there's a thing that people now understand is some of us learn how to mask really well, right? And so that's what I learned. And a lot of female autistics, not surprisingly, mask, because a lot of women mask just in general. Forget about whether you're autistic. You learn to mask to go along to get along. There are a lot of reasons women do that. So you put that with autism, you got super masking. And what you end up with is both, you can end up being incredibly competent on one level, and then you're freaking exhausted all the time because you're constantly, replicating masks and you're responding to things from that mask more than your deeper internal sense. So unmasking and trying to unravel who I actually am has been quite a thing, right? So and so what those of us who are in this kind of world refer, like, as opposed to high and low functioning, is high and low masking, and what's called a spiky profile. So in other words, a spiky profile, somebody like me, like got PhD, has hard time getting on bus, it's like, it just like doesn't make any sense. And I frustrated and myself until very recently people all the time because I seem intelligent, I seem this, I seem that, and then I can't do certain things. And I think people think I'm joking or I don't mean it, or I'll ask how to do a thing and they look at me like, are you serious? And it's like, no, I actually don't know how to freaking do that thing, and it's like, nobody believes me and they just think I'm taking the piss, and it's just been so frustrating my whole life to be in that position. And then I've tried to pretend I know how to do things I don't know because I don't want to be in that position, right? So
keep at it. It's good stuff.
Awesome,
I had a
thanks.
quick one for Steve.
Yeah, good.
Do you have does Wesleyan, our common experience to some extent, come into your writing ever?
Actually, in the novel that I'm working on now is partially set at Wesleyan. I mean, it's the Wesleyan of my memory, kind of, although I have been back. I mean, as you know, I taught there till 1995 in the summer, and then I did go back one time, or maybe a couple times after that. But I decided that the character, who is one of the main characters of the novel, is a professor at Wesleyan. And so, I mean, it's not really about Wesleyan, but I'm using Middletown and various parts of the campus as sort of as setting for some of the stuff. So, yeah, I haven't ever written about it before, actually. But I thought
nothing experiential, nothing vaguely autobiographical.
Not really, no. I mean,
No.
Yes, not about Wesleyan particularly. I'm really using that as just the setting. I just thought I had written, I mean, part of it is also set in New York. Dangerous Blues is almost completely set in New York, which I had never really written about before. But I thought, I don't think I want to do that again with this book. So one of the characters is a New York younger person, and the other main character is a professor at Wesleyan. But he's experienced a terrible loss in his life, and he's trying to get his life back together. And there's some occult stuff also, supernatural stuff, because why not, really?
And also
Check
one of the people we have in common is my other stepfather, a number of stepfathers, the other stepfather, David Barry, who is a playwright, who died a few years back, is another stepfather of mine. And Stephen, you knew him, I think, at Wesleyan.
I did know him.
Yeah.
I didn't know him that well, but he was one of the first he was the first senior that I met. I was a freshman.
Right.
I mean, it's one of those weird, Wesleyan was when I first arrived there 100 years ago, still very much a fraternity school.
Yes, it was.
After my freshman year, it became, the psychedelic capital of Southern New England. But when I first got there, it was very much still fraternity. And so as freshmen, we had to go to all of the fraternity houses and get rushed, kind of, right? And I knew I wasn't going to do that, but I had to do it anyway. And David was, I think, he was the president or one of the main guys of Commons Club, which was one of the fraternities. And he was the person who greeted us. And he also, because I identified even then as a writer, he was like interested in me. And I was with my very good friend, Jim Pickering, who is an actor. So he was like, you guys should come and join Commons Club. And, he was very charming, as he was. And we didn't join, but that's how I met him. And I was sort of vaguely in touch with him for a long time. And then I went to see when J.R. Point was on Broadway. That's when I reconnected with him, actually.
Yeah.
So you never joined a fraternity at all?
No, I never did.
No.
Sorry.
No,
did Commons Club? Oh, sorry, Jane. I saw yours. Did Commons Club become eclectic? Is that what became eclectic?
No, eclectic was always eclectic.
Really
Oh, it was. Oh,
it was not a fraternity in the sense.
Commons Club was around the corner from that
from
High
there.
Street.
Yeah.
It was on
Okay.
It was down
same
towards
street.
the end of High Street.
Yeah, it was on the same street where, like, the science building was.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's what became K&K. Yeah.
I had a great room there.
College? Was that college?
Right. Yeah, I don't remember the street's name. It's a long time ago.
It's so funny. This is like this ancient Wesley. This must be boring the crap out of other people. Robin, do you have a question?
Right.
First of all, Commons Club was not traditional. It was a club, but it was not a fraternity.
Yeah.
It prided themselves on not being a fraternity. It was a club, and it made a big difference. People like Walter Kendrick joined because it wasn't a fraternity. There were a group of people who were very proud of that, but they were kind of like an eating club or something. And they got, anyway, a question that I wanted to ask Stephen is when my husband, Tom, died 12 years ago or 11 and a half years ago, for a period of time, let's say a year or more, I don't believe in ghosts, but I came to understand the concept of a presence, a very real presence. And sometimes it would happen that I'm in the house and I turn the corner and there he is, or sometimes it just feels like he's sitting next to me. Other times I would be kind of in a dream state, but coming out of the dream state and feeling very strongly that he was right there by the bed. And yet I couldn't open my eyes to see him, but I knew he was there. Now, over time, that sense has diminished, that incredibly strong sense that he was still here, but I still have a sense of his presence, but not that way. But that makes sense to me because I have this, I'm not a believer in a lot of things. But it does seem to me just the concept of, gets very weird because I don't really understand quantum physics, but the idea that energy doesn't just just disappears. It stays around. It has to kind of ease out. And the idea that his energy, and it manifests in the sense of him being here with me. And I'm just wondering, in your experience of trying to formulate your own process through this and sharing it with people through your book, did you have any kind of experience like that, or were your experiences different? I mean, I wouldn't call it ghost necessarily, but a strong presence.
I had recurring dreams in which my wife appeared. Kate was her name.
Right.
I mean, for months and months and months, and it was pretty much the same dreams. Sometimes she was actually just there in the dream, kind of watching me. Other times she was more of a participant. Sometimes we would be actually talking. But I mean, I never felt outside of that she was there. I mean, except that I have pictures of her all over the apartment. So in that sense, she is there. But the recurring dreams, and I mean, I still have dreams about her and about my daughter as well, but and they sort of come and go. I feel like at sometimes it's, repeated dreams are about my late wife, and at other times I have a series of repeated dreams about my daughter. And it's like, I feel like sometimes they're together, but more often they're separate. So that was my experience. I mean, and I tried to get some of that sense into the book also.
And I think you do.
I've had that experience.
Sorry?
I've had that experience that Robin was talking about with my mother. Yeah. For 2 years. Yeah. Things that defied but actual specific things that happened. And it's interesting how the whole theme of this event centers around, in some ways, death. And
yeah, I always say it was not my intention to be the bard of family loss, but somehow that seems to be what I ended up writing about.
Well, no, it's interesting. It's interesting that with my thing with Tom, where I can feel his presence, but David Barry died just around Christmas time in 2016. Now, David was my lifelong friend for 50 years. The reason we divorced is because, as everybody probably knows, he was gay, and we just couldn't keep it going both ways. We really tried, but we finally had to divorce. But he was at my wedding with Tom, and Tom and David got along very, very well. But the thing of it is I dream a lot about David. So my dream world but my sense of presence that's alive in my world is Tom, but my dreams often have something to do with David. And I also dream, of course, of Julia, but it's just interesting how these two people who are very important in my life manifest in my life, one through dreams and one through a sense of presence. It's just weird. The world is weird.
Weird.
Everything's
good word.
Yes. And of course, I was glad you brought up the Horatio, the line about, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophies, the famous Hamlet line, because, nothing has been proven more true than that in my life over and over again.
Can you repeat that line, what the line is, Julia?
There's nothing. Oh God, now I'm going to get it wrong. I think I said it right at first. There is more to heaven and earth, Horatio, than is dreamt of in your philosophies. Is that it, Stephen? I think it's that. Yeah.
I think so. Or is it there are more things in? I don't remember.
Anyway, it's something along those lines.
Under heaven or something.
Yeah, under heaven and earth, whatever. Then are dreamt of in your philosophies, because they're like philosophy students in Germany, and they're back in Denmark. And, yeah. And it's all about rational thought. It's basically like, Shakespeare's version of Descartes' error or something. Yeah, so. Yeah, well, I think it's technically time. So I'm thinking I might, unless there's another question somebody has that they want to ask for recording purposes, I can end the recording part and the actual thing. Or Stephen, do you want to say any final thoughts or
I
words?
put my Authors Guild website address in the chat, although I haven't
good.
updated it in quite a while, as somebody
Okay.
recently pointed out to me. But it has stuff about Dangerous Blues, that it has a few things about Come Away, which was my previous novel. So yeah, I got to update it. I will, I swear.
Yes.
But also
yes.
I'm on Facebook, certainly, and I'm on Instagram if people, which is too busy. I don't really like Instagram, but if you're trying to reach me in some way, that's an okay way to reach me.
Yeah, and I put my website in, which is theunadaptedones.com. Hilarious true story. Thank you, Hillary. Would you be my press agent? I called it that before I knew I was autistic. Just so you know, just like, maybe you did know. And actually, the title of it comes from this wonderful quote by William James, which is on my website. I'm not going to butcher right now, but basically, what he's talking about is there are many more things unadapted to one another than are adapted, and we spend all of our time looking at things that are regularized and not paying attention to that. And he says it much better than I just said it. William James, woohoo, for the win. Yeah. So that's
I wanted to thank both of you, Julia and Stephen, because as I mentioned to Steve recently, we had been out of touch and we were back in touch a little bit. I recently retired from my main gig, and you've inspired me to really want to be a writer. I've always been an unrealized writer, and both of you have inspired, and everybody here has inspired me. Thank you.
Right. Go for it.
Frightening, but good.
I was going to say, go for it, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
You'll understand what that means later. But seriously, no, go for it. And I teach writing workshops and all kinds of things, and encourage. And Stephen teaches. I mean, Stephen's a brilliant teacher, by the way. I can't tell you how great he was. I mean, I was, but I mean, just what I remember what you did and watching you inspire people. And yeah, anyway, just wanted to say that. And I love your writing. And it's been amazing to be back in touch with you. And I'm so delighted you took the time to come and chat with me.
Yes, and buy our books. Unfortunately, I suspect that most of you already have bought the books, but makes a good, as Hillary pointed out, it also makes a good Hanukkah gift.
Hanukkah gifts, yes.
Which is early this year.
Yeah, it's early. It's coming right up. So
I'm sure there's lots of holidays.
It's on Amazon. Demon knows maybe, and it's also bookshop.org.
Yep, both here too.
Bookshop.org, please.
Bookshop.org. Yeah, no, it's there. It's there. It is, I swear. Okay, so because this is actually getting mine. Oh, great. Oh, that's great. I'm glad. Actually, I think I signed the ones that were in that one, mine anyway.
By the way, I wanted to mention that I don't know if you knew Laurel, but she was the one that was in back of me. She was the assistant director for at least 1 year. She was at CCY for 5 years. Laurel Maston, if you remember.
Great. Yeah.
I married her we got together 49 years ago.
Excellent.
I finally got around to marrying her 42 years ago.
Made an honest woman of her. That's good. I wouldn't want any unhonest women running around. Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to just stop. I'm not going to end the meeting, but I'm going to end the recording now. So thank you for anyone who's listening to the recording, and you can get in touch with me at theunadaptedones.com, and you can get in touch with Stephen at stephenpolicoff.net. Or
at SP1 at nyu.edu.
There you go. And so, yeah, be in touch if you want. Writers are not rock stars. We love to hear from you. Okay.